Welcome back
I'm Pastor Mark and this is Pastor Andy
to Counterculture.
to Counterculture.
Hey, we just finished up a little rant. Now I got another one. You ready? That I wanted to talk to you about. I've got a whole list of rants.
My blood pressure's up right now.
Counterculture.
You
I
need
know,
to
so
let
this
me
is
get
good.
it down again.
All right.
Okay.
I think maybe I may have mentioned this to you, but I'm going to mention it again, and I want to talk about it for a second. So I attended
We never talked about anything for a second.
right. So I this is such a true statement. So I attended a funeral service for a relative. Mm-hmm. When I was talking to the pastor who was doing the service, he shared with me how important it was for my uncle. He was very concerned, right, about the salvation of our family. Very, very concerned about it, right? And wanted to make sure that in his funeral message, like in the message that was portrayed and that he was worried about people getting to heaven, right? Pretty standard. We want people to get to heaven. We want people to do that. However, it got me thinking about how many times people say that, right, at the end of their life, but they've lived a lifestyle that doesn't portray that at all. As a matter of fact, they haven't been concerned at all about the salvation of other people. They never mentioned to any of their family or friends anything about heaven. So, how important are things to us if we're not willing to tell the people that supposedly we love and that we appreciate and that we want? How important are they to us if we're not willing to make sacrifice or do the things that would show that those things are important?
Well, it's not that important.
It's not.
It's apparently to him.
No.
Because sometimes, here's what I've heard sometimes, Andy. My mind's going all over the place, so you're going to have to let me just
I'm going to let you go. I just gave
hash
it to
this out. Yeah. Where people are more concerned about losing their friends than their friends being lost. Oh, boom! That is a sermon title. If I ever heard one.
the wind.
Write that down, assistant producer.
He is
Okay.
busily
Can't
doing
find good help anymore, can you?
Busily
Right
doing
there
that.
it is. Some people are more concerned about losing their friends than their friends being lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the assistant producer. Write that down. I don't understand that.
Apparently, I don't understand it
I
either.
understand it. It's like here's the thing. We will tell people if you say, "Where's one of your favorite restaurants, Mark?"
Yeah.
In
Mark, where is one of your favorite
oh
restaurants?
my goodness,
I'm glad
La
you asked.
Cucina della Nonna.
There you go.
El Jarocho.
Because you can
Okay,
just
and I can tell people, oh, you need to do this. I mean, we make all sorts of recommendations all the time, and don't think twice about it.
No, we don't.
I can tell you who the greatest doctor in my town is because she is my doctor, and I will refer. We make referrals and recommendations all the time, but do we refer? Well, I don't like to talk to people about religion and politics. They talk about politics all the time, but we don't want to talk about religion because, well, we wouldn't want to be fanatical, but we don't want to
because we
hurt him.
refer
We
to
don't
the
wanna-
pastor.
Yeah,
We
that's the
that's
pastor's
the
job.
pastor's
I'll get them,
job.
and they'll say, "Pastor, it's your job to lead people to Christ."
It's your
But
job to
what-
get my family to Christ. And if
Yeah.
my family doesn't want to go to your church, then I find another church.
And if they don't want to go to church with you, maybe you need to think about why they're not going to church with you.
Well, maybe you've never.
Because I've seen them
invited
sometimes around town, and they're very nice to me and everything, and like me. And
How-
I've seen it in churches I pastored before,
Well,
where when it would snow, like their parents would not come to church because
Yeah.
it was treacherous, but then their kids would show up to church.
yeah,
I'm like, well, this is interesting.
super.
They knew mom and dad were going to be there. They'd come to church.
Sure.
Maybe we need to stop and look at why aren't my friends and family getting saved and coming to church? I mean, and I got to tell you, there's times it's easier when if I'm talking to your family than if it's maybe my own or a close friend of my own. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to.
I said that.
It's easier. I'm not going to deny that.
I said that to this pastor. I said, listen, thank you for taking care of my family. Sometimes it's easier for someone new and out of the loop to talk to people, right? That's great. But my family knows that where they go is important because they've heard me tell them that, right? So if we're going to say to people on our deathbed, so we're gone and we've told our pastor, hey, these people need to know how important heaven was to me, but you've never talked about heaven with these people.
Yeah.
How sad is that? Right, but we do that in all kinds of things. We talk about how important Jesus is, but we never mention his name. We never talk to him about anything. And so then we're going to invite people, even if we do invite them to come to church, they're going to hear about a Jesus we've never told them about.
Yeah.
How
And then
sad
why
is
haven't
that?
you told me about this sooner?
But it's so
okay.
important to you.
So this did happen to me. I did my sister and brother-in-law's wedding 6-7 years ago. And there was a guy that I went to high school with. And he and I, it was really cool. He and I went through pretty much all of our elementary education, high school education. We graduated together. We went to catechism together. We were in church together. It was a wonderful thing. And I saw him at my sister's wedding, and I went over, was talking to him, and and we were catching up a little bit. I'm a minister, and he had made the comment. He goes, I've often thought about spiritual things. I think about God and stuff, and we talked a little bit about. And I said, it was getting loud and stuff. I said, I said we need to have. I said, anytime you want to give me a call, I said, give me a call. Deb's got my number, whatever, and whatever. And so it was really cool, because then I found out that he started going. He had divorced and remarried, and he and his wife were going to the little church I got saved in, just a block from my mom's. And then there was another high school friend of ours was going there too, and has since quit. But when I was back there in January for my mom's funeral and stuff, and I'd gone over to that little church, and this guy saw me. He goes, "Mark, is that you?" We caught up, and he says, "Hey, you got time for coffee this week?" I do. So we go to coffee. And I was recalling how we had talked, and I said, we never got to finish. He goes, "Yeah, why didn't you tell me about Jesus then?" He says. And it was a good indictment. I mean, he wasn't really mad at me, but it was like, he kind of was like, dude, I could have been following the Lord. So here's the interesting thing to me. And a friend of mine gave me a different take on the parable of the workers.
Ooh.
The worker comes at 6 a.m, roughly. Yep. Come on, 9 o'clock, here's some more. Noon, the 3 o'clock. Line up to get paid. The 3 o'clock people got paid first. They got a day's wage. We're going to get more because we work long. Didn't do it. They're upset about it. He says, number one, it's my thing. I'll pay what I want to pay. And a buddy of mine told me this one time, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thought. I've never forgotten it. That's why I'm telling about it. He says, the tragedy of that story is, number one, yes, the people are like, well, I should get more. Yes, there's that piece. The tragedy of the story is the people that did not get to work at 6 o'clock in the morning missed out on serving the master all day long. So you talked about people that they live like the devil, whatever. Here's the sad thing about, and I came to really got my life with Christ established or started when I was 21. I didn't get to go to camps and stuff like that. And all this. Now, I'm glad it happened when it happened, but here's the tragedy when someone, but they got in at the last minute on their deathbed, whatever. That is great. That's a beautiful thing. The tragedy is they missed out on a lifetime of serving the King. We need to take advantage, and especially, here's what gets me, Andy. Now you got me started. When I have to deal with minnows, okay, as one pastor said, I'd rather be swallowed by a whale than nibbled to death by minnows. Solomon said, "Let us catch the little foxes that spoils the vine." It's not the big things that always get us; it's the little nitpicky things. And here's what gets me. I see the days we're living in. And I'm not going to get into prophetic things, end time things. It's rough. I don't care whatever the deal is. It's getting nasty.
And personal.
And so I see the days we're living in. And let's assume we are in the last days. And we are. Paul thought he was, and he was. He didn't live that long. I'm in mine. I have more years behind me than I do in front of me, probably. So I'm in my last days. So whether it's the last days or my last days, the bottom line is, I think we need to be paying more attention. I don't have time. I'll be honest with you, as a pastor. I get frustrated more with the little nitpicky things. Well, pastor, how come I can't do this? How come I can't, I want to do this. And well, I should get to, wait a minute here. There are people, when COVID hit, I remember I heard a minister say to me, he goes, well, I'm okay. I'm ready to go. And I looked at him, I said, well, you know what? I'm not ready for Jesus to come. I'm ready to go. But you know what? I have people who I know who do not know Christ, and I want to see them with Christ.
Somehow we got to get to Paul, right? Where Paul says, to die is gain for me.
Yes.
But it's better for you.
Yeah, if I stay. Exactly.
If I
And
stay.
so, I'm like, gosh. And I have just said to people, I don't have time for this. The days we're living in and we're fighting over this.
One of my favorite
Come on.
phrases is, for myself, is in the realm of life,
Yes.
how important is this?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
In the realm of life, if heaven is important, it ought to be something that I'm wanting my friends, my family members to come to.
Yeah.
Right? But I shouldn't be dependent upon somebody else
Right.
to tell my family or my
Exactly.
friends how
Exactly.
important heaven was to me.
Right.
What is important to us ought to come out. Right? Like, it ought to come out. It goes back to the last one we did on Christmas service on Sunday. If God's really important to you, it ought to come out.
Yeah. Right.
It ought to be.
And what are the two things that will tell us what's important to us?
Yeah.
They said it for years. If I look at your calendar and if I look at your checkbook or your credit card statement, however you want to put it now, I will tell you, I can tell what's important to you.
Amen.
I can tell what's important to you.
And again, we need to make sure that our walk and our talk are matched.
And how long has it gone on? I remember an old saint telling me this one time. He goes, Pastor, it used to be people say, well, the pews are too hard. So churches started padding their pews. Well, there's no air conditioning in the church, and I get it's too hot for me to come to church, so they put air conditioning in the church. Well, it's too early in the morning. Well, and you know what? Here's the bottom line.
Change.
And what we try that now? We said, well, I had someone say to me recently, well, I work on Sunday, so if you had a service in the evening, I'd come on Sunday evening. I said, no, you wouldn't, because you're gonna say I'm too tired to come to church on Sunday night because you worked all day. Here's the bottom line, and then I've heard this from church growth people saying, well, what kind of church are we in? We say, well, here's when we're open. You got to come in. Well, there are businesses that say, here's when we're open. I've been trying to get to an outdoor store and hunting store recently, and I've driven by it almost every other Monday, and they're closed on Mondays. And I'm like, I don't want to drive all the way up there to do it.
Is it the new one?
Yeah, that's the thing. They're closed on Monday, so I'm like, okay, I get the idea. We got to be more accessible and say, okay, here's some opportunities. But here's what I have found: every opportunity I give, and I want to try something new after the first year. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a little nervous about starting it. I'm reticent about starting it. Actually, is a better word, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to offer this, and well, I got something else going.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's right. We want God on our terms. We don't get to declare the terms.
Right, the rich young ruler found that out.
Yeah. He goes, well, here's one. And Jesus said, no.
and that-
But what did Jesus say? He looked at him and loved him. And he says, I'm not changing the rules.
Yep. That's exactly.
Here's how you do this.
Yep.
Either you want it or you don't.
That he loved them enough to not change the rules.
Yes.
We've been told for years as churches
Yes.
that if we love you, we'll change the rules. Listen, I think we ought to get rid of air conditioning.
Yeah.
We ought to have churches just heat up in the summer, and we ought to just sit there and preach truth,
Preach on hell in the summer when it's
right.
really hot.
You think it's hot now? Wait.
Well,
wait.
here's what's funny to me is with the last couple Sundays of Advent, we normally use I don't have a worship leader, and so we use canned music, as you would call it. But the Lord's met us in that canned music. It's funny, people say, well, it's not real live music, but they'll say, I sit in my car and listen to the radio and listen to the songs.
It gets rid of personality.
Exactly.
Nobody's sitting in the pew looking at the worship leader and going, I know where you were last night.
Yep. And so what's interesting to me is the last couple of weeks we've sang out of the hymnal. I've led the songs. So we had a family there a couple of weeks ago, and they had a couple teenage boys. And I said, hey, take that burgundy book in front of you and turn to number whatever. And we sang about 4 songs. You know what's cool? Those boys picked up the hymnal and they were singing those songs. Now, I heard this one time, as all these churches, they have rock worship and stuff. And I had read something that said, people who don't normally go to church, when they do go to church, are like, I can hear a rock concert anywhere. I'm coming because I need something different than what I'm dealing with all week long. But we say, no, I'm going to just, and it's like pastors say, well, we got to make the Bible relevant. No, we do not. The Bible is relevant. We show its relevancy.
So listen.
I'm done ranting.
No,
You got all of it coming out.
I got the solution.
Tell me.
We're going to start a first church of the uncomfortability.
Ooh.
And we're going to make it under Pastor Robbie Morrell. We're going to let him take all the heat. he can start the
And then
first
we'll,
church of the
we'll take up
uncomfortable.
an offering
Yeah.
to help pay for the counseling he'll need.
Exactly. We'll send all the people we don't want
Right.
to the first church of uncomfortability.
Right.
I love it.
Okay.
All right, let's leave it there. Hopefully next week we
Isn't that what
get out
every
of the,
church, church should be every week though? Is
it
the
should
church
be.
Of, yeah.
It should
Okay.
be.
Yeah.
But we just need to start one because we don't have a lot of those.
Now there's something to think about. So
Ooh,
think about it.
think about it. Would you attend the first church of uncomfortability if offered the opportunity? Would you pastor it?
Maybe I do. They call me Captain Meddler at my church. I make them very uncomfortable sometimes. Sometimes. Most every Sunday. All right.
All right, listen, join us next time on Counterculture as we will attempt to remember to talk about Captain Meddler. Sounds like a fantastic counterculture. We'll see you next time.
Grace and peace.